Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at today's joint lecture webinar on Pakistan's geopolitical challenges. The lecture will explore trends of geopolitics, in particular reference to their impact on Pakistan and how these developments fit in a larger South Asian context. This lecture is jointly organized by the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore and the Pakistan High Commission in Singapore. Today, we're delighted to have with us as the guest speaker, Ambassador Masood Khalid, former ambassador of Pakistan to China, South Korea, and Malaysia. The session is moderated by Dr. Ronojoy Sen, Research Fellow and Research Lead, Politics, Society and Governance at ISAS. Before we proceed with the event proper, we would appreciate it if the audience could switch off their microphones and videos throughout the session. If you have any questions or feedback to share during the proceeding, please forward them via this chat. They will be consolidated for the guest speaker to respond during the Q&A session later. The joint lecture is being live streamed on the ISAS Facebook page. I now invite Dr. Sen to make the introductory remarks and chair the discussion. Dr. Sen, please.
Thank you, Kuntavi. A very warm welcome and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, to all of you. Today's lecture is jointly organized by ISAS and the Pakistan High Commission of Singapore. The lecture is titled Pakistan's Geopolitical Challenge, and we're very fortunate to have as our speaker today Ambassador Masood Khalid. Ambassador Masood Khalid was the longest serving ambassador of Pakistan to China, a career diplomat. Ambassador Masood Khalid joined the Foreign Service of Pakistan in 1979. He was appointed as ambassador to China in January 2013, following ambassadorial assignments in South Korea and Malaysia. From 2001 to 2005, Ambassador Khalid served as the Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations in New York. Earlier in his career, he had also served in the Pakistan missions in London and Uzbekistan. He holds a master's degree in international relations from the Quaid-e-Azam University in Islamabad. The lecture, and I won't say anything more too much about it since Ambassador Khalid will take the floor very soon. But very briefly, the lecture will discuss trends of geopolitics with particular regard to the impact on Pakistan. In this regard, Ambassador Khalid will focus on developments in South Asia, which are of direct relevance to Pakistan. Global strategies such as the transition in the global economic order, the shifting center of gravity from the west to the east, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine will also figure in Ambassador's talk. Of great consequence, of course, is the growing United States-China rivalry, which in turn has sharpened rivalries between the three important countries of South Asia, namely China, India, and Pakistan. South Asia is also witnessing greater strategic instability due to power asymmetry. Another negative trend is the erosion of regional cooperation, along with the decline of the importance of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, or what is better known as SAARC. Afghanistan too poses another challenge to peace and security of the region, not to mention looming climate-related disorders, which has confronted all the countries of South Asia. So without further ado, let me hand over the floor to Ambassador Masood Khalid. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Sen, for chairing this session. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Kuntavi, for being the MC for this afternoon. And also, I would like to thank the ISS for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this important topic. I will start my remarks by quoting Tim Marshall from his bestseller, Prisoners of Geography. He states, and I quote, "The land on which we live has always shaped us. It has shaped the wars, the power, politics, and social development of the peoples that now inhabit nearly every part of the earth. Geopolitics looks at the ways in which international affairs can be understood through geographical factors, unquote. Now apply this to Pakistan in the backdrop of its history, and you will come to know that this land has been a gateway to the invading armies from Ural Mountains and Central Asia for centuries, a route for cross-cultural interaction and trading, a converging point of different civilization. And in fact, some historians opine that Pakistan is one of the oldest land inhabited by humans, as an outcome of their research. And consequently, an area which is traditionally prone to conflicts and turbulence. Its western borders have served as traditional migration routes between Central Asia and South Asia. You would recall that the great game of the 19th century between Britain and Russia was played in this region. Today, in a new constellation of power, Eurasian geopolitical map is being redrawn. The current shift in the balance of power to Asia seems in line with the prophecy of Halford Mackinder. Considered a founding father of geopolitics, Mackinder said in 1919 that who rules Eurasia will rule the world. So are we witnessing the beginning of a new great game? And if so, Pakistan happens to be right in the midst of these cross currents touching its frontiers. Choppy waters are all around Pakistan. It has India in the east, Afghanistan to its northwest, Iran to the west, and China in the northeast. Pakistan has access to the Indian Ocean in the south through the Arabian Sea. It is right at the mouth of the Persian Gulf, through which bulk of Middle East oil passes. All its borders, including the maritime border of 1,146 square kilometers, are sensitive from the point of view of geopolitics. And Pakistan's two borders with India and Afghanistan are particularly contentious, and I will try to explain, because I thought that I should begin my talk by focusing on Pakistan's geography and Pakistan's frontier, so that the audience has a clearer picture of how geography dictates geopolitics and geostrategy. Now let's talk about Afghanistan first. The border with Afghanistan, known as the Durand Line, is about 2,600 kilometers. A narrow strip of Afghan territory called the Wakhan Corridor separates Pakistan from Tajikistan and also extends into China. The Durand Line, established in 1893, has been disputed by Afghanistan as a legitimate international border, while Pakistan recognizes it to be an international border. Traditionally, from the British time, the border has remained porous and hundreds of people cross it every day for economic and family reasons. This border is a major security challenge for Pakistan since the Afghan conflict erupted in 1979. Subsequently, it became a nerve center for terrorist outfits, smugglers, and crime syndicates who created instability in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. Few years ago, Pakistan decided to fence this border to curb the illegal activities and to regulate trade and flow of visitors. The terrain is extremely treacherous, and it has been a huge task to complete the fencing, but I think about 90% or more has been completed. Infiltration through unmanned crossings still takes place. There have been violations of Pakistan's territory from across the border by Afghan troops also. India. So this was a brief picture of our border with Afghanistan. Now I'll talk about India. Pakistan has a 3,323 kilometers long international border with India and a 770 kilometers line of control, the ceasefire line in Kashmir. Since their independence in 1947, India and Pakistan have gone to wars 4 times and 3 times on Kashmir. Only 3 years ago, the line of control was quite tense due to frequent military clashes between India and Pakistan. Thank God, now a ceasefire is holding. In 2019, India violated the LOC and attacked a Pakistani town using its air force. Pakistan retaliated and shot down 2 Air Force planes, also capturing a pilot who was later returned to India. So it is a tense relationship which makes peace between Pakistan and India very fragile, particularly in the context of nuclearized environment of South Asia. Pakistan and India also have a maritime dispute in the undemarcated Run of Kutch area in the Sindh province of Pakistan. And both countries had a clash in 1965 at this point. So this is the overall picture of, the border situation and the border disputes and territorial dispute. With Iran, Pakistan has a 959 kilometers long border. The border is not disputed, but due to the vastness and its remoteness across Balochistan province, which straddles both countries, the border witnesses occasional incidents of exchange of fire between smugglers and fugitives. Pakistan and Iran are working on tighter border controls as both sides apprehend that the hostile forces are at work in training and infiltration of terrorists. It is also a route for human smuggling to European continent. Pakistan's border with China is about 560 kilometers, formalized through a border treaty in 1963. This is the most settled border being used for cross-border trade and tourism through Karakoram Highway or a friendship highway built by both countries in early or mid-70s at an elevation of about 6,000 meters. This road is closed in winter for 4 months. Now it is being upgraded for use as a main overland artery or channel for China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project. So this was the brief picture of our 4 borders. Now I will talk about this geography, Pakistan's geography, and whether this is an asset or a liability in terms of geopolitics. The foregoing illustrates how Pakistan's borders with its neighbors pose a security challenge, and that remains her main preoccupation. But at the same time, Pakistan's location offers her a unique position to be a bridgehead for regional connectivity. Notwithstanding the present embargo on direct trade between India and Pakistan, Pakistan is a logical conduit for India's outreach to Central Asia and Afghanistan. Pakistan has overland connectivity with Afghanistan, Iran, and China, and with the Middle East and Africa through the Indian Ocean. Pakistan and some Central Asian republics like Afghanistan and also Afghanistan, like Uzbekistan, are working to operationalize road and rail links between them. And the projects like TAPI, which is Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, CASA 1000, which is Central Asia, South Asia project for energy, Pakistan-Russia gas pipeline project, all of them aim at fostering regional trade and communication links. For Pakistan, enhanced trade and economic partnerships with China, Central Asia, and East Asia are crucial for its long-term economic development. CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is the signature project of BRI, seeks to connect not only Pakistan and China, but also envisages including Afghanistan. Lately, there are indications from, and this is a good sign, from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Sri Lanka also to join CPEC. This vision of greater regional connectivity through CPEC is in sync with Pakistan's foreign policy paradigm of geoeconomics. All regional countries are aspiring to reap benefits accruing from BRI. However, the main roadblock in this regard is continued instability in Afghanistan. The regional volatility in the wake of fragility of its eastern and western borders keeps Pakistan in a crisis mode most of the time. Right from the very beginning of its founding in 1947, its security and foreign policy has been driven by a quest for security. Pakistan joined the Western alliances, as you know, of SEATO and CENTO in the Cold War period. And then in 1979, again, Pakistan became a bulwark against Soviet expansionism when the Russian forces invaded Afghanistan. And after 9/11, Pakistan became a partner in the US-led coalition in the war on terror. With the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan last year and induction of Taliban, the international community was hoping for an inclusive and broad-based political dispensation, respectful of basic human rights, women empowerment, and particularly the education of girls. It was also expected that the Taliban would not allow Afghan soil for terrorism. However, these expectations have not been fulfilled. Instead, Afghanistan seems to be drifting towards instability and an uncertain future, and terrorism is raising its head again. For Pakistan, the greatest security challenge is from TTP, which is Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, and IS of Khorasan state, which is affiliated with Daesh, and they have stepped up their terrorist activities inside Pakistan. There appears to be an ideological accord between the Taliban and TTP. However, ISK is reportedly ideologically opposed to Taliban and has its own agenda for an Islamic caliphate. So one can see that this complicated scenario should be of concern to all regional countries, including India, who do not wish to see Afghanistan become yet again a sanctuary for terrorists. Instability in Afghanistan poses a serious security challenge for Pakistan, which can once again see an influx of Afghan refugees. We already have about 2.5 million, and a spur in terrorism and extremism in the tribal belt of Pakistan, with a spillover to neighboring countries. CPAC's extension to Afghanistan will also remain a pipe dream in such an eventuality. Hostile forces have used the Afghan soil in the past and doing it even now for sabotage and subversion inside Pakistan. For example, BLA, Balochistan Liberation Front, I think Army, is being used to target the Chinese personnel and assets in Pakistan, while ETIM has been used against China to create unrest in its Xinjiang province. This pincer movement against China and Pakistan is neatly choreographed to bring them under pressure. So the failure of Afghans to bring peace to their country will undermine regional stability and pose a security dilemma for Pakistan and the region. Now, as regards India, unfortunately, both Pakistan and India have failed to agree on a framework for peaceful coexistence between them and on a dispute resolution mechanism worked out either bilaterally or multilaterally. So their relationship is always on the brink and marred by a war of attrition. Dialogue is suspended since 2015. India's unilateral action of undoing the special status of occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir in August 2019 has also sharpened tensions with Pakistan as well as China. And you know, there is a border standoff also between India and China. SAARC, which is the only intergovernmental body of South Asia for regional cooperation, has been rendered dysfunctional. So South Asia, which is least integrated region, faces multiple challenges of poverty, food security, water security, energy security, pandemics, and above all, climate change, which recently manifested itself in the floods in Pakistan. These challenges are regional and need a collective response and cooperation amongst all South Asian countries. But the picture is not that good. Instead of entering into cooperative mode, South Asia is fast emerging as a sub-region of the larger Indo-Pacific theater, where Sino-US competition is in full play. Power asymmetry in South Asia is growing. India is now the third largest importer of arms globally. Indo-US alignment is not only aggravating tensions between India and China and India and Pakistan, but also resulting in diminished regional stability. Pakistan's security concerns are genuine, as 70% of Indian military assets are deployed on border with Pakistan. So Indian Ocean is also getting militarized, and this is also a source of serious concern. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So regional cooperation in South Asia, much aspired by all South Asian countries, has the potential to produce significant gains for all stakeholders. According to the World Bank, inter-regional trade now stands at just 1/5 of its potential and can be optimized quickly to $44 billion if trade relations are fully normalized. As I said earlier, the threat of climate change alone could be an incentive for states in South Asia to collaborate. I'll also talk briefly about the United States. Any discussion of challenges to Pakistan is not possible without mentioning Pakistan's relations with the United States. These relations have historically witnessed cyclical swings of engagement and disengagement. At the height of the Cold War, Pakistan was the most allied ally of the United States. Then it graduated to non-NATO ally status during the Afghan War, and later the most sanctioned ally at the worst time in their relationship. So this relationship has vacillated between strategic and tactical, and it is more aptly described as transactional. US long-standing concerns with Pakistan have been over its nuclear program, terrorism, and human rights. President Biden in last October described Pakistan as the most dangerous nation in the world which has nuclear weapons. Of course, this remark did not go well with Pakistan, but it shows the US apprehensions about Pakistan at the highest level in the United States, despite a recent thaw in their relationship. And of late, USA has also opposed CPEC and Pakistan's ties with China. On its part, Pakistan finds US to be an inconsistent partner and one who remains unmindful of Pakistan's security concerns. Pakistan wishes to maintain a right balance in its relationship with the United States based on convergence of mutual interest. It does not wish to foster relations with the United States at the expense of China or vice versa. Each relationship has its own trajectory. Pakistan certainly does not wish to be caught in the crosshairs of US-China rivalry. Pakistan's relations with the United States are important. It is Pakistan's largest export market, a major investor, have a major role in IFIs, and there is a sizable community of Pakistani expatriates in the United States. For 2 decades, the Afghan War and War on Terror provided the principal basis for engagement and cooperation, even as it became a source of mutual distrust between the two countries. I think for the sake of stability in South Asia, both countries need to address the sources of their distrust and carve out a cooperative framework for their future ties. US also needs to view Pakistan-India issues from a broader angle of peace and stability in South Asia and play its role to diffuse tensions. China, I would briefly say that Pakistan and China have enjoyed a steady and trusted relationship over the past 70 years. And this relationship has proved its resilience and is promoting regional peace and strategic stability. This relationship is not against any country, nor CPEC has any ulterior motives. Pakistan and China are eager to promote regional amity and economic cooperation. And while Pakistan-China relations have good prospects of development, this relationship faces challenges from its critics and detractors who wish to drive a wedge in Pakistan-China relations. And both Pakistan and China also face a challenge to project this relationship in its right perspective in order to allay apprehensions and to counter propaganda against CPEC. Now, briefly about Iran. Iran is an important neighbor of Pakistan. Both countries have plans for energy pipeline, enhanced trade, and sister port relationship between Gwadar and Chabahar. However, Pakistan's relations with Iran are constrained by US sanctions, Pakistan's close ties with Saudi Arabia, and Iran's perceived or alleged role in support of militancy in Middle East. Pakistan also expects Iran not to play the sectarian card vis-a-vis the Shia population in Pakistan, which is about 22%. And Pakistan and Iran agree that they should maintain stability on their joint border. But Pakistan would like to see an improvement in Iran's relations with Saudi Arabia and Gulf states with which Pakistan enjoys close relations. Pakistan also faces other challenges of a fragile economy domestically, a fragmented politics, and a weak governance structure. Recent floods have caused a heavy blow to economy, as a result of which its GDP will slow down. The disruption in supply chains on account of war in Ukraine can cause issues of food security, especially after the destruction of millions of crops in recent floods. Another crippling effect on our economy is due to high cost of oil imports. There is shortage of LNG in the global market. So Pakistan has to spend a lot of foreign exchange for its import. Pakistan's efforts to diversify its energy mix will take time. So the government is now seeking the help of foreign investors to provide solutions through renewable energy and has announced liberal incentives for them. Pakistan also faces unconventional security challenges of population explosion, food insecurity, energy security, pandemics, and of course, climate change. And these require, of course, reform measures also within Pakistan. Another threat to Pakistan's security is the hybrid warfare. Pakistan is facing an onslaught of false and fake information through formal and channels and social media. Cyberspace is being violated, and our hackers are, our detractors are using, technology to create social unrest. So these are, collectively speaking, all the threats and challenges geostrategically which Pakistan faces. Pakistan would like to promote cooperation with all countries and the resolution of its disputes with India peacefully on the basis of equality and mutual interest. Pakistan acknowledges that South Asia cannot break the logjam in the absence of a breakthrough in its relations with India. While Pakistan is prepared to engage in a meaningful dialogue with India, I believe the initiative should come from India, which suspended the dialogue. So I'll conclude here on this note that despite constraints in operational environment due to geopolitical pressures, there are opportunities which are coming up for Pakistan to maximize its diplomatic and economic outreach through fast tracking of CPEC, close cooperative ties with Afghanistan, facilitation of Central Asian trade through Pakistan, and reinforcing Pakistan's traditionally fraternal ties with Gulf countries, and focusing on new areas of cooperation with Southeast Asian countries and Africa under its Engage Africa policy. Sino-American competition, of course, turning into a new Cold War, which is the defining feature of this century and impacts all countries in one way or the other. It will be global in scope and would increasingly manifest itself more prominently in Asia-Pacific, Eurasia, South Asia, and the Middle East. It is understandable as to why Indian Ocean is a hotbed of tensions, because it is an important maritime and trade route, as well as contains proven world's reserves, oil reserves and gas reserves. Power dynamic in South Asia will witness a fierce race between the geostrategic interest of the United States and geoeconomic prowess of China. And I'll conclude here by quoting Graham Allison, who, talking to late leader of Singapore, Honorable Lee Kuan Yew, in 2015, says that Mr. Lee told him that China's unbounded aspiration was driven by an indomitable determination to reclaim past greatness. And he also said, Mr. Lee also foresaw the 21st century as a contest for supremacy in Asia. So as the Chinese say, we are living in interesting times. Let's see how these things, how the situation evolves in the years to come. But I think the die is cast in the context of American policy, which has declared China to be a strategic competitor for decades to come, and also Russia, which is posing new threats, perceived threats to the United States. So I'll conclude here, and let's have a discussion or questions. If there are any, I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador. I was also muted as part of the security regimen that was put in place. Thank you once again for that very illuminating talk on various aspects of of Pakistan's geopolitical challenges. So let me now throw the floor open to questions. Normally we have our audience sending in their questions to the chat function, but I think that's been disabled. So we'll just ask people to request the audience to ask their questions, just speak up, raise their hand. So we have I see a hand raised by my colleague, Imran Ahmed. I'm asking to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, we can hear you, Imran. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Ambassador, for such a sobering account of Pakistan's security challenges. I had a couple of questions. Ronald, would you mind if I put them all sort of together?
Sure, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I think we can then just take both of them together. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you so much. You covered so much ground in terms of looking at Pakistan's relations with the major powers as well as its neighbors. I wanted to ask, how has the fact that both India and Pakistan being nuclear states shaped the dynamic of the relationship between these two states? And my second question was, you mentioned about how, climate change being something of a shared adversity for all the states in South Asia. And you talked about the potential for collaboration on that. I was wondering if I can gauge your thoughts a little bit more. What sort of collaboration do you see possible on this issue between the countries in South Asia? Thank you.
Ambassador, could I just use the chair's prerogative to just add a couple of points to the questions posed by Imran? One on the nuclear issue, and this is a question that I often pose my students at NUS. Has the acquisition of nuclear weapons by both India and Pakistan, do you think it has contributed to the stability of the subcontinent in a sort of perverse kind of way? And two, on the climate issue, would you regard the Indus Waters Treaty, which now goes back several decades between India and Pakistan, do you see that as a sort of successful example where India and Pakistan have cooperated in something that has by and large stood the test of time despite occasional irritants? Yeah, please, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I think the first question by Mr. Imran on the nuclear issue and by the chair, I think more or less the theme is the same. I mean, the thrust of the question is the same. Yes, I tend to agree that the nuclear capability of India and Pakistan has restored stability in South Asia, because this nuclear capability is based on the concept of mutually assured destruction, and you would see that both countries find it difficult to engage even in a conventional conflict, conventional fight, because the threshold, in terms of escalation ladder, is quite low. And given the geographical depth for example, of Pakistan vis-a-vis India. And, a couple of months ago, there was a missile, nuclear capable missile, which landed in Pakistani territory. One can see that the situation can turn, quite complicated, given that both possess the nuclear weapons. But at the same time, I think this has restored some kind of, strategic balance, I would say, in South Asia. But that does not mean that both countries at some point in time cannot engage in discussing, a mutually agreed strategic restraint regime. Many years ago, Pakistan had put forward concrete proposals in that regard, both in the conventional realm and the strategic realm. So I think, well, one can be optimistic, but I think, but what is, from my independent thinking is, what is of concern to us, to me, is personally, that both our countries, which are the biggest in South Asia and owe some responsibility in terms of peace and security of the region, somehow we are not focusing on the core issues, which are of poverty and underdevelopment. And a lot is being spent on acquisition of arms and developing our military capability. So how long will this be sustained? I can't really say. But ideally, if we were to sit together and discuss the contentious issues, our disputes, and try to, at least agree on one thing, that we are neighbors and we have to coexist with each other, and whatever disputes and problems are between them, we ought to thresh them out, through negotiations and dialogue. So this is number one. Climate change. You saw the recent floods in Pakistan, and we were also not fully prepared for that. It was an onslaught. No one was expecting that kind of, deluge. Estimates are that Pakistan's economy has been affected to the tune of $30 billion. And huge loss, human loss, property, this and that. So it will take a lot of time to rehabilitate and restore the flood-affected areas. Now, all these waters are coming from Himalayas. Pakistan is a low riparian state. And India also faced, a few years ago, the tsunami. Bangladesh is facing its own problems. Maldives is facing its own problems. So I think that we can sit together. One agenda, climate change, how will it affect our lives, our economies? Who knows that we have this repeat of the same devastation next year? So this is a natural calamity, and countries of the region need to really brainstorm and sit together to find solutions to this issue. And I think, in my view, although SARC has been made dysfunctional, but SARC can resume its deliberations by agreeing on this one-point agenda that they will discuss climate change and its effects on South Asia. Indus Water Treaty, yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, that Indus Water Treaty has sustained, and it has been a significant, a good confidence-building measure between India and Pakistan. And there are mechanisms within the treaty for resolution of disputes, arbitration, neutral experts, etc. And both countries, Pakistan has also been exercising that option, because Pakistan, as a low riparian state, has its concerns on the conservation and the regulation of waters, by India. So, but these are technical issues. I will not go too much into detail, but I think the treaty has delivered, and it needs to be preserved, in my view.
Thank you, Ambassador, for addressing the questions. A few more that have come in, both somewhat related to some of the points that you were making. One is on the floods that you talked about, and the kind of the calamitous, how calamitous it was. You sort of outlined it. So the question is, how has the recent floods sort of impacted Pakistan's geostrategic imperatives, as well as its climate change plans? So this is the question that I think asks you to sort of look somewhat ahead. What has been sort of the impact of the floods? You talked about it, but how will sort of Pakistan, looking ahead, what does Pakistan do in terms of both strategy as well as environmental plans?
First of all, I'll reply in three parts. Number one, at the Sharm el-Sheikh COP27, I think developing countries and Pakistan played a leading role in that also, along with other partners, other countries, that we sort of managed to have this loss and damage fund. So that is, I think, a major breakthrough for developing countries, and Pakistan will also, I'm sure, will benefit from that. Secondly, the government has, started working on contingency plans to avoid a catastrophe of this proportion. And of course, we are in touch with international donors, and France has offered to organize a donors conference, which I think will take place next month. So with international partners also, with World Bank and other institutions, we are in touch, and some friendly countries have also come forward. United States has come forward, China has come forward. Practically every country of the world has come forward and assisted Pakistan. So this is the second track which we are following in terms of sensitizing and mobilizing the international opinion. Third element is what effect. Of course, I did mention that Pakistan's economy has been badly affected. We will be facing food shortage, for which we are approaching. We are trying to import wheat and some other grains. Yesterday, I think we concluded a deal with Russia. Russia will be supplying wheat to Pakistan because crops have been destroyed. I don't have a figure readily available, but huge loss of crops. So crops like cotton, wheat, rice, they will be affected. So Pakistan will need to import some of this stuff. And obviously, in the process, we'll be spending foreign exchange. And the foreign exchange reserves of Pakistan are not at a very comfortable position right now. So this is a direct effect on the economy of Pakistan. Secondly, because of the Ukraine war, there has been a disruption of supply chains, and oil price has risen. Pakistan is a net importer of oil from Middle East, and so we'll have to pay more. We are also trying to diversify our energy mix, as I said, but that will take time. And we are also trying to import LNG, which is also very highly priced now because it's in great demand. So these are all, these permutations and these factors which are adversely affecting Pakistan's economy. And Pakistan is in, implementing the IMF program, and we are hoping that the ongoing negotiations with IMF will also, be fruitful in terms of the next tranche, which Pakistan is hoping to get from IMF. We are also, by the way, we are also thinking, yes, I think I should add, we are also thinking of, a restructuring of our foreign debt. And we will be, I think, taking it up with the international lenders.
Right. Thank you, Ambassador. I think you've addressed by and large the second question, which was on the economic sort of the plans of Pakistan, looking ahead in response to the various challenges. But I think you've already talked about some of the ways Pakistan is trying to mitigate the various economic challenges it has faced, of course, due to recent events, like the floods, as well as, the supply chains having been disrupted by Ukraine. But would you like to say a little bit more on the revival of the economy and the economic blueprint of the government, or do you think you've already said enough on that?
No, I did in my intervention, mention that Pakistan is trying to, sort of focus its attention on the geoeconomics, and Pakistan sees, good potential, good prospects in terms of linking up with the regionally with our neighbors through connectivity projects. And there is great appetite in the region because, it is in, for example, Central Asian republics, they're all landlocked countries, and they want access to seawater for their trade. And they find that Gwadar and Karachi are the nearest ports for them. So connectivity through CPAC and through other projects which are in the pipeline and which are under discussion with regional countries, with our regional neighbors, I think that is one dimension. Internally, we have to manage, I think, we have to broaden our tax base, because our tax to GDP ratio is still not that high. So efforts are going on, and there have been good results recently. The National Taxation Authority has succeeded in in generating more revenue. So the broadening of tax base. Secondly, bringing economy, informal economy also in the domain of formal economy through digitization. That work is also underway. Number 3 is managing our debt portfolio, and we just paid $1 billion bond, I think, which was due in the first week of December. We honored that, and we have to work out, how we will we'll pay rest of the debt which Pakistan has. And I think, as I said, that there'll be some negotiation. I mean, that is a consideration that we get into, talks with our lenders because of the devastating effect of the floods on our economy. And I'm sure there'll be a sympathetic year in that context. So broadening tax base, mobilizing imports. We have also cut down on imports because, an interest rate, a state bank has maintaining a high interest rate of 16% to control the inflation, which has been quite high, unprecedented because of the import of oil. We are paying high price for that. And IMF has also added certain, conditionalities for their credits. So we are trying to meet those conditionalities also in terms of removal of subsidies, etc., which has created problem, in terms of inflation for the general public. So imports are also because Pakistan's trade deficit was quite high. So the government has also tried to narrow that trade deficit as well as the current account deficits. So these are, broadly speaking, what the government is trying to do. Of course, we'll have to manage. It's a difficult situation. It's not that easy. And Pakistan is a big country. It's a population of 220 million people. But I think we need to optimize on whatever opportunities are available in terms of our exports, which are sluggish, frankly. And in terms of attracting foreign investment, lately, not only China, but other countries of East Asia and, like Korea, Japan, some European countries have also shown interest because Pakistan's market has good potential and, in terms of cost-benefit ratio, I think it's the business people and the investors can make good profits here. So I think that is, and security, we are also trying to improve the security situation, which is much better than in the past 7 or 8 years. So I hope that we'll be able to sort of manage it.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the broad overview of the economic blueprint of Pakistan and how it's looking to cope with some of the challenges. There's a question on which is coming on Pakistan's relationship with Iran, and it's specifically focused on the potential of pipelines as a means or a point of working together with Iran. And the question specifically is on what is the status of the pipeline projects between Pakistan and Iran? If you could throw some light on that.
Thank you. I would briefly talk about the Iran-Pakistan gas pipeline project. Now, I think I did mention in my intervention also, and if I did not, I'll say it now. This project has suffered because of the sanctions on Iran. According to my information, Iran has succeeded in putting a pipeline on their site. They have, I think, completed or is near completion. Pakistan has to do its bit. Both countries are in discussion on this, and I hope when the situation improves and if there is progress in Iran's negotiations with the United States on its nuclear program, I think the sanctions will be eased. But like other countries, Pakistan is also stranded in terms of maximizing the economic advantages. With Iran, we trade. We export our fruit. We export rice also and other commodities. Iran is also providing about 100 megawatt electricity to the Gwadar city. So all these projects are there under discussion, but I think that has been the main constraint as far as the pipeline project is concerned.
Right. I think we are almost out of time, but as a rider to the earlier question on the pipeline, could you just shed some light on the status of CPEC? You did mention that in your talk and how important it is in the broader Pakistan-China relationship. So has the progress of CPEC been, according to you, matches what the sort of the original plan was, or is it sort of lagging behind in certain aspects? Could you just shed some light on that?
Very quickly, CPEC, when it started in 2015 in its full steam, had 4 areas of cooperation which were mutually agreed. First one was the power sector. Second was transport and infrastructure, communication and transport infrastructure. Number 3 was Gwadar Port and its allied infrastructure. And number 4 was industrial cooperation. So the first 2 have done all right, not bad, the first 2 clusters. Third one, you can say Gwadar is a mixed scorecard. Now the work is picking up. Industrial cooperation, we lagged behind. But this was the first phase of CPEC. So industrial cooperation and Gwadar have been taken forward and included in the second phase, which has started, and the scope of CPEC second phase has been broadened to include cooperation areas in agriculture, IT, science and technology, education, health, etc. So these, in addition to those 4 clusters, we have now at least 6 or 7 more areas of cooperation on which both countries will work. Summing up, in the first phase, we have been able to attract about, I think, 26 or $27 billion worth of Chinese investment in Pakistan's economy, and creating local jobs of, I think, over 100,000. And some important power projects have been completed. Pakistan was facing energy shortfall 5 or 6 years ago. That is no longer the question, no longer the issue. And some more power projects are, in the pipeline. Infrastructure cluster has also not done bad. We have done some road projects, infrastructure projects, rail projects. But I think but pandemic affected the growth and the progress of CPAC in the last 2 or 3 years, and also some domestic politics in Pakistan, although that was not a crucial factor, but I think COVID did affect. And but now we are getting back to picking up the pace again, and I'm sure that in the second phase we'll see more progress on CPAC.
I think we are almost out of time. Maybe I'll just pose one last question to you. And this is regarding, you talked about SAARC and how regional cooperation has, to some extent, or to a great extent actually, become quite moribund in South Asia. So do you have any sort of blueprint on how to revive SAARC? Because nowadays we see India and Pakistan interacting more in other forums, like recently at the SCO or elsewhere, or other international forums. And SAARC, of course, as we all know, has, as you rightly put it, become dysfunctional. So any sort of final thoughts on how to revive SAARC?
SAARC has become a victim of this India-Pakistan rivalry. Pakistan was to host the SAARC summit in 2016, and India blocked it. Since then, SAARC is, non-functional, dysfunctional, whatever. But the important thing to note is that the smaller countries of South Asia, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, they want the revival of SAARC. China is, for example, a big economy. China is an observer in SAARC. China also wants to play a role in SAARC in terms of assistance for specific projects in South Asian countries, particularly in countries which I mentioned. So I think we need to overcome whatever reservations we have. India needs to, and I did point out that if we revive SAARC, it will not only be good for regional cohesion, regional stability, but in terms of giving tangible economic dividends to smaller countries of South Asia, including Pakistan. And China can also chip in, by financing some specific projects in the region. So this is at least how I see SAARC. And if we talk of India's connectivity through Pakistan at some point in time, which is of course blocked now, so we can, all these multiple channels and routes and corridors will generate automatically a momentum for regional cooperation and regional economic integration, which will be in the interest of all South Asian countries.
Thank you, Ambassador Khalid, for addressing all our questions and for again giving us a very illuminating talk on the geopolitical challenges facing Pakistan. May I now hand over the floor to Kuntavi to formally close today's session.
Thank you, Dr. Sen. Thank you very much for chairing the session.
Thank you, Dr. Ronojoy. Firstly, we would like to apologize for the Zoom attack we experienced earlier today. And I would like to formally close now. On behalf of ISAS and the Pakistan High Commission, we would like to extend our guest speaker and moderator for such an engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kunthavi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So sorry. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.